Hey guys, welcome. And of course my new background here of DVDs, some toys, collectibles, basically yeah, most of my stuff. Anyway, yeah. Today is going to be a very fun day today, as I wanted to talk about something that is a little different. I'm sorry, I need to adjust the camera here. Today I wanted to talk about something that I always wanted to talk about on my channel, and that is basically none other than the network Jetix. Yep, Jetix. I want to take a nostalgia trip today, and I want to talk about Jetix. Now, for those of you who do not know what Jetix is basically a Disney Action Channel network, children's television network that focuses on action shows made for kids. Yeah. It was like Disney XD before Disney XD. It was basically a rebrand of Fox Kids. Jetix was one of the most important things that happened in my childhood. And I remember watching a bunch of shows on Jetix. I remember watching a bunch of reruns of the Marvel 90s cartoons. I remember watching some anime like Digimon and some others that I forgot. And I also even remember watching Sonic X back on Jetix, and Jackie Chan Adventures and Totally Spies on Jetix, and other shows including Power Rangers, which was one of the most popular shows to be released back on the channel when Disney had the rights to Power Rangers.
Belongs to you. We're going to the world of Jetix. The world of Jetix. A magic adventure to somewhere new. Together we fight all the forces of evil. All heroes unite. It's time to stand up for what is right. We'll learn what it takes today. The speed and the power to go all the way.
Jetix was the king of action entertainment for young teenagers alike. I mean, if you were a kid that was growing up back in the early 2000s, well, like me, since I was born in 2002, if you were a kid growing up, you know that you would often have fun watching some type of the greatest shows that you can ever try finding. And one of the best shows that was ever been aired on Jetix was Power Rangers. Jetix was the king of action shows. That, of course, ran next with Toonami. And basically, yeah, it was home to kids and teenagers alike who were born in the early 2000s or who were living through the early 2000s. Anyway, Jetix was basically a part of my childhood growing up. I remember watching Jetix for the first time back on my old TV. Basically, I would just have fun just watching a bunch of cartoons all day on Disney and on Disney Action Channel of all places. And basically, yeah, the shows that I would basically watch on Jetix were basically shows like the Marvel 90s cartoons like X-Men the Animated Series and Spider-Man the Animated Series, and of course Power Rangers growing up. I mean, as you all know, I am a Power Rangers fan. I am not embarrassed to rediscover my love for Power Rangers when I was very young. And basically, yeah, I love rediscovering my love for Power Rangers. Jetix also even plays anime like Digimon. And I remember watching Digimon growing up as a kid. I remember I had a fun time watching it. And I kind of have a fun time watching the show to this day. I mean, I would basically just grow up watching Toonami as well. Toonami, that's a different story for another day. But basically, yeah, now I want to focus more on basically Jetix. As a kid, I would basically just grow up watching shows like Batman the Animated Series, Superman the Animated Series, and Batman Beyond, Justice League, and Justice League Unlimited. And I would often watch the Marvel 90s cartoons like X-Men the Animated Series, Spider-Man the Animated Series, and watch the Marvel 2000s cartoons like X-Men Evolution, Spider-Man the New Animated Series, Fantastic Four, World's Greatest Heroes. And then I would often watch other cartoons throughout my childhood. Like, I would often watch Transformers. I would even often watch Transformers Beast Wars. I would often watch one of my favorite animes of all time, like, for example, Dragon Ball Z, Sailor Moon, Sailor Moon, Pokemon the animated series, or basically Yu-Gi-Oh, Digimon sometimes, Cowboy Bebop, Naruto, Speed Racer, and Astro Boy. And I would also often watch sitcoms like Friends and Jesse, That's So Raven, Drake and Josh. And I would also even often watch other cartoons like Phineas and Ferb, and even often watching shows sometimes like Breaking Bad, and often watching um, Power Rangers as well, and of course often watching sometimes Supernatural, even though I was a little young back then and wasn't age appropriate to see it. Basically, yeah, but I would watch those shows anyway, and basically those shows would grab my attention. I would even grow up watching shows like The Simpsons and Family Guy. Their mascot, Jetix, would basically be like this odd silver ball, basically with like those two X's and with that one anime eye. But that was pretty amazing, even though that some people find it to be very weird. That was still pretty amazing. And keep in mind, this was back when they'd taken a lot of inspirations from the Toonami host Tom from Toonami. So haven't I forgot to mention one of my favorite anime of all time, Cowboy Bebop? Yeah, that was my favorite. I remember watching it like it was yesterday, and yeah, but that's a story for another time. But anyways, yeah, Jetix would often have some reruns of the Marvel '90s cartoons like X-Men the Animated Series and Spider-Man the Animated Series, and that would grab my attention after they were out of Fox Kids. I remember watching Fox Kids when I was a little young, but then it would later be rebranded to Jetix in the early 2000s. And basically, yeah, I mean, the shows I would basically watch on Jetix are the Marvel 90s cartoons, and of course, Power Rangers. And basically, yeah, Power Rangers would be one of my most important things in my childhood. Super Sentai, and of course, let's not forget Kamen Rider right here. Yep, that's right. Kamen Rider is right there. Basically, one of the most popular Power Rangers shows of the Disney era on Jetix and Toon Disney. The most popular would be Ninja Storm, Dino Thunder, which is one of the fan favorite seasons, SPD, another one of the fan favorites, and of course, one of the most underrated and one of my favorite seasons of all time, Jungle Fury. I absolutely really love this series. I mean, it's pretty underrated despite that it's, you know. Power Rangers would become one of the most important things throughout my childhood. Super Sentai would become one of the most important things throughout my childhood. I mean, I had no idea that the show basically reuses clips from Super Sentai. I had no idea until I was 18, which was mind blowing. I know, my mind was blown, but I did had a feeling about it. But basically, yeah. Basically, I would just sit down and just sitting down, just rewatching some of my favorite shows of Power Rangers, watching some reruns like Mighty Morphin, Zeo, Turbo in Space, Lost Galaxy, Lightspeed Rescue, and of course, Time Force, Wild Force, and basically, yeah. And one of my favorite Power Ranger seasons, one of my favorite Power Ranger seasons or series, of course, favorite Power Ranger series / seasons I would ever watch are basically Dino Thunder, SPD, and Jungle Fury. Jungle Fury being one of my most favorites out of the seasons, but I do still love Dino Thunder and SPD. Anyway, I would even often own some of the Disney era Power Rangers, some of these seasons that I grew up watching back in the early 2000s as a kid growing up and having Jetix, and basically I would just have fun just watching Power Rangers most of the time. Basically I have Ninja Storm, Dino Thunder, SPD, and of course Jungle Fury. Unfortunately, I do not have I do not have Mystic Force or Operation Overdrive or RPM. Unfortunately, I do not have any of those shows. Even though that Mystic Force was okay, it wasn't as good as I thought it was going to be, but it was still enjoyable, and it does have some decent storytelling and does have some good characters. And basically, yeah, Overdrive, don't get me started on Overdrive because of how bad it is. There are some good moments here and there with Overdrive, but it was considered to be one of the weakest of the Disney era of Power Rangers. And also, RPM. RPM is still pretty good, but yet it's underrated like Jungle Fury. But RPM was overall just amazing. Despite that, it was half aired on Jetix, and then it was aired on ABC Family, and basically I would often miss it, and I would watch some reruns of RPM on Nickelodeon when what I heard that they were doing like more phenomenal things on Power Rangers, and basically we'll get into Power Rangers when we get there. We'll get there back in a bit, but for now I want to talk more about the other action shows that I really love watching. I mean, action shows like the Marvel 90s cartoons, like with X-Men the Animated Series and Spider-Man the Animated Series, those were the shows that I really loved growing up as a kid. I loved watching those shows as a kid. I talked about them a lot in my channel because, you know, I'm a huge Marvel fanatic, I'm a huge superhero fan, and a huge comic book fan as well. I mean, you know, I collect a bunch of comic books, like how I collected this, and basically, yeah. Plus, basically, yeah, those were the shows that grabbed my attention. Those shows basically were a part of my childhood, and they were very important to me growing up as a kid. And then, basically, I would also watch Gargoyles on Jetix. They were doing some reruns of Gargoyles on Jetix, so basically, yeah. But yeah, Gargoyles was definitely one of my favorite shows to ever watch as a kid. I still love watching it to this day, and yeah, I rewatched some of the episodes, some of my favorite episodes that I love watching of Gargoyles on Disney Plus, and yeah, the show still holds up pretty well to this day. Other shows that I really like growing up as a kid are basically American Dragon Jake Long. Now, that was a show that I really loved growing up back in the early 2000s. Basically, yeah, I mean, American Dragon Jake Long was one of the best Disney action shows that Disney has ever made. It is one of the best action shows in general. I remember watching it on Jetix for the first time, and I remember I had a fun time watching this type of action show on Jetix. I had a fun time just watching the show over and over again. I remember that as a kid in the early 2000s, I always wanted to be like American Dragon Jake Long, or I always wanted to be like Speed Racer, or be like Spider-Man, or be like Batman or something like that. And basically, yeah. But look at me now. I'm a filmmaker, and I also talk about movies now, just like Kevin Smith. Just like Kevin Smith. I even love watching shows like Jackie Chan Adventures, which basically I was kind of a Jackie Chan fanatic myself. I love watching his films like Rush Hour, and basically, yeah, I love watching most of his favorite films, and I had no idea that he had his own show called Jackie Chan Adventures. I remember watching it on Jetix, and then basically, yeah. But before that, it was aired on Kids WB, basically Jetix's predecessor, that of course along with Toonami. And basically, yeah, Jetix has been overshadowed by a bunch of these, but you know, we'll get into that when we get there. But I had a fun time watching those shows growing up as a kid. I love watching these old classic shows. I've watched some bits and pieces of Jackie Chan Adventures, and basically, yeah. Then other shows that I really like watching are basically none other than let me see. Sorry about that, guys. Favorite shows that I really like watching are basically that I basically love watching. Not just Digimon, of course. I already talked about Digimon. Other animes I really like watching about on Jetix are basically Beyblade. Yeah, Beyblade was basically my childhood growing up. I remember that I always wanted to get the toys growing up. I remember that I love watching the anime so much. I remember that I wanted to get so much of those other types of things. And basically, yeah, I watched a lot of Dragon Ball Z. I watched a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh! I watched a lot of Cowboy Bebop, Naruto, and basically, yeah, I mean, I watched Naruto growing up as a kid, and I still love watching Naruto to this day. I remember watching Naruto on Cartoon Network as a kid. I remember watching it back on Toonami as a kid. Basically, yeah. Also, I remember watching Pokemon, the animated series, and I just remember being fascinated by Pokemon growing up. I think I remember I had a VHS tape of the Pokemon, a rare VHS tape. I don't know if I still have it. I think it's probably gone. I think it was probably, I probably donated to Goodwill or something. I don't know. But basically, yeah. Yeah. Jetix would basically just be this home to Saturday morning cartoons. That, of course, ran next to 4Kids and ran next to Kids WB and sometimes Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon. I mean, I grew up on watching Nickelodeon anime shows like SpongeBob, Jimmy Neutron, Fairly Odd Parents, and of course Danny Phantom. Basically one of my 4 favorite Nickelodeon shows that I ever loved watching, and I still love watching those shows to this day. But yeah, I would often have a fun time watching Blade growing up as a kid, and basically, yeah. Another one of my favorite action shows to ever watch on Jetix was Get Ed. It was basically kind of a weird show, but the show was pretty underrated. I mean, basically the show was kind of like Mega Man a bit, but it was at the time when Disney was basically trying to experiment, trying to have more CGI animated type shows on somewhere around like Disney Channel maybe, or basically before Disney XD, Toon Disney, and basically the show would be aired on Jetix. One of the most underrated shows that I would ever watch on Jetix is one of the most underrated animes ever made, and that is none other than Shaman King. Shaman King was just well directed, and well, it was well drawn, it was well animated, and well voice acted as well. It's a very underrated anime. It's actually been a while since I've actually seen this anime, but I remember I had a fun time watching it. I remember watching the episodes growing up. I remember that there were some of the DVDs and Blu-rays out there, I believe, and basically, yeah, and I did remember watching it over and over again on Jetix at some point. I also even remember watching shows like Yang Yang Yo, which was basically a slapsticking action type comedy type series. It's a little controversial, but hey, I thought that the series was alright and just pretty funny and was enjoyable. Anyway, basically it was Disney's experiment on CGI for television, and basically their first attempt for CGI on television, basically, yeah, although Disney were kind of more the distributors for it, because I could not find Get Ed on Disney Plus whatsoever. I tried finding it on Disney Plus, and so far it's not on Disney Plus. But basically, yeah, this was like one of the most underrated shows I've seen. And then there was Yin Yang Yo. Yin Yang Yo was basically more of a mix between slapstick comedy and action. There are action scenes in this series, but it's more basically slapstick than basically just, yeah. But it was still a fun show to watch. It was still fun. It's been a while since I've actually seen the show. I watched bits and pieces of that show as an adult, but I remember watching the show as a kid. But it's been a while since I've seen it. But yeah. Then there was Totally Spies. Totally Spies was by far one of the most awesome action awesome action shows on Jetix. Even though that the show was basically, even though that the show was basically made for a female audience, it also had a male fan base too, and it also has an adult fan base where basically there are people that are cosplaying as the characters, or people that are doing reviews for the show. And basically, yeah, I mean, there's like a fan base of this show, and if you don't believe me, then basically, yeah, it's just, there are like a bunch of people that I've seen in conventions, cosplaying people on the internet that also cosplay as one of the characters from the show. And basically, yeah, it's kind of like, yeah, it's basically Charlie's Angels, but it's set in the early 2000s, and basically it's also made for kids as well, and it's also an action show. But basically, yeah, the show was definitely very good, and yeah, there was even another show called. Other shows that I would basically get to watch back on Jetix was basically Shaman King. Sorry about that, Shaman King. Yes, I remember watching Shaman King for the first time growing up as a kid. I remembered now. It's been a while since I've actually seen Shaman King, but yeah, but Shaman King was one of the most underrated and one of the most funnest and most watchable animes I've ever seen. That, of course, along with Dragon Ball Z, Cowboy Bebop, and so much more. But yeah, I would have so much fun watching these shows growing up. Basically, yeah, I would also watch some shows like Witch, which basically, it's like one of the greatest shows that you can ever see. One of the greatest action shows, even though that the show, like Totally Spies, was made for a female audience. It had a male base as well, and overall it would gain a cult following years later after the show's debut. And basically, yeah, that show would make a great following years later. And then, of course, we finally get to talk a little bit more about Power Rangers and all that. Basically, you already know my love for Power Rangers in the early experiences of this video, because as you all know, I am a Power Rangers fan. I grew up watching Power Rangers as a kid. I grew up watching the original Mighty Morphin run, and I grew up watching Power Rangers back on Fox Kids. Power Rangers would always be around since 1993, and basically, yeah, Power Rangers was around since 1993 with Mighty Morphin, and it would air on Fox Kids back in 1993 with Mighty Morphin, and then would be aired on Fox Kids back in 2002 with Wild Force, with half of Wild Force, and then Wild Force was moved to ABC Family. But basically, yeah. But most people don't know, if you were a fan of Power Rangers, you know that there will be some reruns of Power Rangers, reruns of previous seasons of Power Rangers on Jetix, since basically, yeah, I watched a bit of Power Rangers back on Fox Kids, and then I would watch it again back on, and then I would watch it again on Jetix, and basically, yeah, I would have a fun time watching Power Rangers, even though that Power Rangers was being looked upon as basically just being cheesy, and basically, yeah, over time, it grows to be more than just a kid's show, and basically, yeah, the franchise would go on to expand upon, kind of like Ninjago, although this was back before Ninjago, and basically, yeah, we'll get to that when we get there anyway. But basically, yeah, I would often love watching Power Rangers. I would often love watching the show growing up. And one of my favorite Power Rangers seasons I really love most were basically Dino Thunder, SPD, and Jungle Fury. One of my favorite seasons of the Disney era of Power Rangers. And basically, yeah, I want to talk more about Dino Thunder first. Dino Thunder is overall one of the best series/seasons of Power Rangers that I have ever seen. Just overall pretty amazing. And bringing back Tommy Oliver, this time being the Dino Thunder Black Ranger, was pretty amazing. Even though that this was supposed to approach fans who grew up with the original Mighty Morphin run back in 1993, at that time, it was still pretty awesome. It was still pretty cool to see Tommy again. He wasn't just there for fan service, and he was trying to be more like the mentor to the new Ranger teams. And these Ranger teams would be more relatable instead of being like the goody two shoes, like how they were portrayed back in the original Mighty Morphin run from 1993, and all the way up to in space. And basically, yeah, Dino Thunder would be by far one of the greatest Power Rangers series and one of the greatest Power Rangers seasons out there. This show was overall really amazing, and it was a good anniversary to Power Rangers, and it was a great tribute to Power Rangers in general, and just overall one of the greatest anniversary seasons of all time. Basically, yeah. And I would overall just really love seeing the show. And then there was SPD. SPD, by far one of the best of the Power Rangers out there. Of the best Power Rangers series/seasons out there. Overall, they did a really great job fleshing out with the characters. And one of my favorite characters of all is actually Jack from is actually Jack, aka SPD Red Ranger. He's overall one of my other favorite Red Rangers, right next to Casey, and right next to Connor from right next to Casey from Jungle Fury, and right next to Connor from Dino Thunder, and Cole from Wild Force, and of course, who else after that?
I just got off a plane from New Mexico. I got a 900-mile drive back. That's 14 hours if I don't stop.
What was his name again? Oh yeah, his name is Wes. Basically, yeah. Anyway, Jack would basically be one of the best characters out there. He was the most developed out there. That, of course, along with Sky, SPD Blue Ranger, of course. Basically, yeah. I mean, the characters are really likable, and I really like about how they give more character development and more background into it, and so on and so forth. And yeah. Anyway, yeah. They did a really great job with Sky's character as well. Basically, where he started off wanting to become the Red Ranger, but instead he turned out to be the Blue Ranger instead. And basically, yeah, that's because that Kruger was basically testing him and basically asking these types of questions. And when Sky answers, basically he gives him the opportunity of being the Blue Ranger instead of being the Red Ranger. Basically, yeah. Doggy Kruger is by far one of the best mentors of Power Rangers out there. And basically, he's one of the best mentors in general. And I absolutely really love him as the Shadow Ranger, which was pretty cool. The Omega Ranger is also pretty cool. I know that there was some controversy surrounding him and how he's one of the most blandest characters that you ever seen. He's not really annoying. I don't find him as a hateable character. I do really like his character. I mean, I thought that his Ranger suit was overall pretty amazing. I know that he's a little bland of some sorts, but I do like his character. I do like his character a bit. Basically, the Omega Ranger is basically that kid from the future. What was that kid's name again? I don't remember, but basically he's like him, like in the future or something like. It's confusing, I know, but just roll with it. Just roll with it, please. Anyway, we know that Sky wanted to become the Red Ranger because of his father, but after Kruger questioning him, basically, yeah. Anyway, after that, in an episode where we get to see him confronting this alien, this monster shape-shifting mirror type creep, and we see him trying to interrogate him. We found out about Sky's father. We found out that Sky's father was a Red Ranger back in SPD, of course. We found out that we found out about what happened to Sky's father. We found out that he was killed in the line of duty in the accident where that monster probably killed him, and basically just, yeah. And Sky and his mother would never see his father ever again. And basically, yeah, that was the last time he would see him, where he would say goodbye to him and his wife before, you know, his untimely demise. And basically, that was a pretty sad backstory, and I just overall really love Sky's character development. He is by far one of the best characters, and one of my favorite Rangers in general, one of my favorite Blue Rangers out there. That, of course, along with Theo and basically along with Ethan from Theo from Jungle Fury and Ethan from Dino Thunder, and basically just, yeah. Yeah. Sydney is also by far the spoiled character of Power Rangers, although she's not like fully spoiled. She's not like the one of those spoiled spoiled people from shows like My Sweet 16 or basically, yeah, she's not like one of those things at all. But yeah, she does care for others. She does make sure to basically to get the mission done. She does follow SPD rules, and basically, yeah, she loves being the Pink Ranger, and basically, just yeah. I mean, there is even one episode where she does care for that dog, and even when she was trying to do the best that she could to basically, just yeah, and even finding out more about Jack, and basically how Jack never really had a birthday. Well, he doesn't even remember his birthday actually, and offered him some cake, and basically, yeah, they would become awesome friends later over time. And basically, yeah, I mean, Cindy overall was just overall another one of the best developed characters, and I absolutely really like her character. Also, there's the SPD Yellow Ranger, who's basically Z. Z is overall one of the best Yellow Rangers out there, and she's well developed about how basically she was kind of an orphan, how she was an outcast, and basically how we know that she and Jack were basically stowaways. They were basically strays, just trying to steal in order to survive, and also trying to take care of others, like how Jack was taking care of the homeless woman. And basically, yeah, Z wanted to help others, and even joined SPD to help, along with Jack, even though that Jack started off as basically kind of taking advantage of his leadership. But over time, he manages to become the best. I mean, he's overall a good leader, although he's not great, of course. Sure, he's not a great leader, but he still is a good leader overall. I mean, yeah, even though he's not like a great leader, he still is good. Anyway, yeah, she even helped the kid. Basically where basically this kid was an outcast, and would basically, yeah, basically he was very weird, and the kids see him as very weird. But yeah, Z manages to basically take this kid under her wing, and would basically, yeah, would basically just help out this kid. And yeah, she helped out this kid so well, and then later in the future, this kid will later become the Omega Ranger. And basically, yeah, Bridge, he is the smart one, and is also a bit of a goofball and a comedic relief. And basically, just yeah, but he does have his smarts and thinking, and he's overall another one of the best, smartest Rangers out there. He's also one of my favorites. Just absolutely amazing. Other side characters I really like is basically Kat. Kat is by far one of the most awesome side characters I've ever seen. I mean, she does become like the Cat Ranger, but that was only just for one time, even though that she doesn't really use it that often. But she's still skilled even without even without being morphed, and basically just yeah. Also, Doggy Kruger is also pretty much very skilled, and is the most skilledest of the Rangers, and the most skilledest of the Ranger mentors out there. Even manages to defeat Grum without being morphed into the Shadow Ranger. He defeats him with his own skills. He didn't need a morpher. He uses his own skills, which was pretty awesome. It was pretty cool, and just the most badass thing that ever happened in Power Rangers. And basically, yeah, SPD is overall just a really good season. And then there's Jungle Fury, by far one of my favorite Power Rangers seasons out there, and one of the most underrated ones, but it's one of my favorites. I loved it a little bit more than Dino Thunder. I loved it a little bit more than SPD, and basically, yeah, it's one of my favorite seasons of all time. The theme song is overall pretty catchy, and of course, the animal spirits of the Rangers is also pretty cool. The Ranger suits are also pretty much fantastic, and one of my favorite Red Rangers, Casey Rhodes. Casey Rhodes is by far one of my favorite Red Ranger characters out there. And Casey's overall one of the best leaders of Power Rangers I have ever seen. He's one of the best leaders and one of the best students I've seen. He was basically trying to find he was basically trying to be the responsible leader that he could be for the team, and even tries his best to do what he can do. And basically, yeah, Casey is overall one of the best characters I've seen. He is well developed and pretty much, yeah. Even when he was trying to save Jared from Daishi's control, at the end of the day, he is a good mentor, and he is a good leader and a good teacher. And yeah, Lily is basically the exciting and yet is also the heart of the team as well. She makes sure that she puts the differences between Casey and Theo on. She makes sure that she puts their differences aside and makes sure that they work as a team to fight the bad guy. And she does a really great job with that, and tries to cheer both of them up. And basically, she's doing the best that she can to try to make sure that the team is staying at heart. She is the heart of the team. She is the best of the team. And basically just, yeah, she is another one of my favorite Yellow Rangers out there. Theo is also the know-it-all, and basically is the going by the books kind of guy. But sometimes there are moments where he does feel a little like too overconfident, and basically, yeah. But in the episode where he gets to meet his mentor, who basically has the spirit of a bat, basically he learns more. He does the best that he could. He tries to regain some confidence, and basically he's perfectly skilled, and basically he learns more and more along the way. And basically even though that he kind of hates Casey at first, because, well, I mean, he kind of hates Casey a bit, but let's be honest, they don't really know each other a bit. But basically, yeah, despite that Jared betrayed him, and despite that Jared betrayed three of those characters, and basically he would go on to become none other than Daishi. And basically, yeah. And speaking of which, Daishi is one of my favorite villains throughout Power Rangers. It is overall pretty. Anyways, Theo basically started out as not liking Casey because of some of the jealousy a bit of hanging out with Lily, and Lily getting to be friends with Casey. But Lily manages to help Theo to put him and Casey's differences aside in order to work as a team. RJ is by far one of the best mentors out there, and I think he was very awesome. I really like the Wolf Ranger in this. The Wolf Ranger is by far one of the best extra rangers out there, and RJ is just really awesome as the Wolf Ranger, and is one of the best mentors and one of the best extra rangers out there. And basically, yeah, there was also another character called Dominic, aka the Rhino Ranger, although he showed up in the show a little bit late, and this was because that there were some episodes that had to be rushed to get it on air on time because of the Screen Actors Guild protest and everything happening like that at that time. Yeah, there were some things that happened outside of the studio that they were filming at, and they had to film they had to rush out some episodes, and they have to rush out some episodes, and they have to film it with other things. And basically, yeah, but it's alright to say that the show is overall really good, and by far one of the most underrated Power Rangers seasons out there. It's overall a really amazing series, and if you have not seen this, please go check it out. It is amazing. It is absolutely wonderful. It is overall one of the best shows that I've ever seen. And basically, yeah, the acting is overall pretty good. The action is shot and edited very well, despite that it often reuses Sentai footage. And yeah, since a lot of Power Rangers series often reuse Sentai footage, and basically, yeah, they reuse Sentai footage ever since the beginning, and they always do that. So yeah, and but the character development is overall pretty good, and I really like the character development in this. It is absolutely... Anyway, Jungle Fury, what I really like about Jungle Fury as well is that I also like the Spirit Animal Rangers, as they are really cool, which includes the Bat, and I think the elephant, and maybe the I don't know what else, but I don't remember what type of animals that they had for spirits, but basically, yeah, that's. I remember the black one was a bat, and basically, yeah, but they were pretty cool, and I definitely really wanted those toys. I mean, I have like this, hold on. I have like this, Red Ranger. Yeah, I know the hand is missing. I used to have some of the Jungle Fury toys, like I had the Megazord, and I have 3 of those Rangers that I bought from Fred Meyer, or the Disney Store, or Toys R Us. Yeah, I mean, Power Rangers, toys and merch were being sold at the Disney Store. And basically, yeah, because I would often go there a few times after going to the Lego store or going to GameStop at the mall. And basically, yeah, remember the Disney Store? But yeah, I used to have those, but not anymore. I don't know what happened to those. I think they were lost. Yeah, overall, I really like Jungle Fury, as this is by far one of my favorite seasons out there. I also really like the character of Camille, by the way, as she is one of the most awesome characters I've seen. She started off a bit as bland, and she did start off as a villain throughout the season, or throughout the series. But over time, she manages to find good in herself. I mean, she manages to develop to be more as a character. And basically, yeah, but I also really love her character. And I thought that her character was pretty amazing. And basically, yeah. And her redemption arc was also pretty cool. Like Jared's redemption arc. Speaking of which, Jared. Even though that both Daishi and Jared are 2 different personalities, they're still the same, but they are 2 different personalities. Jared is not really all that evil, and his backstory is pretty sad. You can actually sympathize with this character, and you do really felt sorry for Jared for the things that he had to go through when he was very young. Like how he had to deal with bullies, or how basically he failed a test, and basically, yeah, and how he didn't really have a family, and the only thing that was closest to a family was the family that he grew up with back in the farm. And basically, yeah. Also, Jared even trying to prove himself that he's the coolest in the Monty Python Academy. And basically, yeah. And then at the end, he gets his redemption arc. Daishi is no longer a part of his personality anymore, and he gets rid of Daishi and manages to defeat him. And basically, yeah, and he restarts over by being another student at the Monty Python Academy, when Casey is now the teacher of the Monty Python Academy. And basically, yeah, when Casey, Leo, and Lily save the day, and Casey is now the teacher and now the mentor. And basically, yeah, like I said, he's one of the best leaders. Casey is one of the best Power Rangers leaders out there, and one of the best Red Rangers in general. He's overall really cool, and he's definitely one of my favorite Red Rangers. And I think Jason Smith did a really great job on playing his character. I also think Anna Hutchinson did a really great job on playing Lily's character. I also think that the actor who played Theo, I forgot his name, I think he did a really great job on playing the character. And basically, yeah, it's a really great series, and yet it's pretty underrated. And if you have not seen this series yet, go watch it right now, as the series is now available on DVD. Or if you could not afford the physical release of one of your favorite Power Rangers series, then you can watch it on YouTube for free, as the show is now available on YouTube for free, actually. Or, yeah, it's overall pretty amazing and is absolutely really awesome, and I definitely really love this series. Jetix will become a lot more popular outside of the US. It will become popular in the US, although it would be overshadowed by its predecessor, Kids WB and Toonami, etc. And basically, just, yeah. But it would become more popular outside of the US, like Japan, and of course there would be Italy, Mexico, Peru, I believe, and of course Europe. It was way more popular in Europe than ever. I mean, I remember that there was like a bunch of merch. I think there was like a backpack, maybe. There was like there was like a broadcast television for Jetix about the Little League and all that. I think yeah, I think I remember that a bit. But yeah, then again, I'm not really into sports, so yeah, I'm not really that much into sports. I'm not a sports guy, so yeah. But I did remember the Jetix monster truck thing and the other Jetix vehicles. Like there was a car, I believe, for a race car national, and basically, yeah, I remember those things. They were just pretty awesome. Jetix would become very popular around the world, and it will be remembered thanks to the power of nostalgia and thanks to the power of the internet. But then came 2010, when tragedy struck. Now, basically, with the half of Power Rangers RPM being half released on Jetix and then would be released on ABC Family, but it would basically have like this scheduling issue for its premieres and all that, and basically, yeah. And around that time, Disney bought Marvel, and they didn't want to do anything with Power Rangers anymore. I mean, if you guys didn't know, Power Rangers was a Fox Family property, and when Disney rebranded Fox Kids into Jetix, they decided that they wanted Power Rangers, and they bought Power Rangers along with it, even though that Disney had tried to cancel the show multiple times. But because of the success of the series, it manages to be more and more and more successful, and it's still going on to this day. It is still going on to this day. And yeah, it's kind of sad for Disney to let go of Power Rangers, but at the end of the day, they bought Marvel, and they let go of Miramax at that time, and basically sold Miramax, and Paramount will later buy Miramax, and then afterwards, there was originally going to be like a Power Rangers animated series that was going to be released on Disney XD, but unfortunately that idea was scrapped, and Saban fully bought the rights of Power Rangers back from Disney, and of course the shows will be produced by Nickelodeon, and then the rights will be later sold to Hasbro. But yeah, I already talked about that in my other video. But anyway, yeah, another thing that this thing I would really like to talk about Jetix is that Jetix basically was shut down in 2010 and was rebranded as Disney XD. Even though that I didn't really enjoy Disney XD too much, although I would often watch shows there like Phineas and Ferb and Ultimate Spider-Man as a kid, and other shows like Gravity Falls, etc. But basically, yeah, I would often watch those shows as a kid. But seeing that it wasn't as good as I thought it was going to be, it just made me realize that I missed the good old days of Jetix. And yeah, I mean, there were like some really good, awesome shows on Jetix. Like there was Super Monkey Go Team, which is by far one of the best Disney action shows I've ever seen. There was reruns of The Tick, Gargoyles, the Marvel 90s cartoons, and of course there was also reruns of some previous Power Rangers series. And of course, often we would get to see more Power Rangers. Like we would get to see Ninja Storm, Dino Thunder, SPD, and Jungle Fury. And basically, yeah, even though that Mystic Force and Operation Overdrive were considered to be by far the weakest of Power Rangers, they still had some nostalgia to it, and most people just often collect those seasons on DVD now, since they are on DVD by Shadow Factory. And basically, yeah, and some are available on YouTube, but most people are just buying it on physical media for like about $20. Like I bought Dino Thunder for like $30 plus extra shipping. I bought Jungle Fury for about $18 free shipping, SPD $23 free shipping, and Ninja Storm $18 free shipping. And basically, yeah, I would still often watch those shows, even though I don't have Mystic Force or Operation Overdrive or RPM. Yeah, I mean, I liked the fact that RPM was like a mix between Hot Wheels Acceleracers and a mix between Terminator and Mad Max, which they were very popular around that time, and they took a lot of inspiration from Hot Wheels Acceleracers, Terminator, and Mad Max. And Jetix was no more after that, and that was very sad to see all the fun and nostalgic memories just going away, fading to dust, like how Thanos snapped. in Avengers Infinity War. But yeah, basically, Thanos snap, gone. But I remember my friend Lee, aka the Dragon Critic. You may remember him for his reviews on Power Rangers and How to Train Your Dragon and, you know, all those other movies, etc. that he just really loves. He talked to me about Jetix, and I remember Jetix growing up as a kid. I remember that I had a fun time talking with him about Jetix, and I remember I watched a lot of Jetix with my brother when we were watching Power Rangers around that time, because Power Rangers was more popular on Jetix than how it was more popular in any other networks at that time, and it was a lot more popular with Jetix because, you know, Disney owned the rights to Power Rangers. But yeah, my brother's no longer interested in Power Rangers anymore, and now he's just moving on and just stopped watching Power Rangers and is now watching shows like Breaking Bad and The Boys. Though Jetix would still spawn with other merchandise like DVDs, toys, video games, CDs, and so much more. But yeah, even though that it was often compared to Toonami, which I can see why. People have often compared this show, not the show. People have often compared Jetix to Toonami, and I can definitely see why. Although there are some differences between Jetix and Toonami. The difference between is that Toonami focuses more on some WB related action shows, but most likely focuses on anime. And Jetix basically, while it does focuses on anime and some reruns of shows from Disney and other types of stuff from the 90s and all that, it also focuses on Power Rangers, etc. and some anime too, but mostly Power Rangers. And let's also not forget Super Monkey Go Team, which is one of the best Disney action cartoons ever. I remember watching this show as a kid, and I remember I was being impressed by it, and then the show got canceled, but now it's on Disney Plus, so you can actually watch Super Monkey Go Team on Disney Plus. You can actually rewatch some of your favorite shows on Jetix on Disney Plus, or some of your favorite shows on Fox Kids on Disney Plus, like X-Men the Animated Series and Spider-Man the Animated Series and Gargoyles. And of course, you can rewatch Super Monkey Go Team and American Dragon Jake Long on Disney Plus. Although, sadly, you cannot watch Power Rangers on Disney Plus, even though Disney owns the rights to Power Rangers. But in reality, it's Saban and Hasbro's property, and it's Toei's property. So basically, yeah. But anyways, yeah. But you can actually rewatch them on physical media on DVD, or you can rewatch it on YouTube. And basically, yeah, or rewatch it on Amazon Prime. Jetix was one of those things where basically you remember from a trip down memory lane at one point. Remembering all the good times that you watched, remembering the shows that you watched from Jetix when you were a child, including watching it with your friends and with your brothers or sisters as well, or cousins, siblings, relatives, etc. Jetix was just overall one of the best action network channels for kids in the early 2000s, in the early to late 2000s, until basically it would be shut down. But I did remember my fun shared memories of watching a bunch of shows on Jetix. Like, I would watch shows like Get Ed, or shows like Yang Yang Yo, Shaman King, Witch, and Beyblade, and other shows like Chaotic, and other shows like Totally Spies, etc. Even though Jetix is no more, at least we still get to have some of the shows on the internet, and some shows that are on streaming, like Super Monkey Go Team on Disney Plus, or some shows on physical media like Power Rangers on like the Disney era Power Rangers, like Dino Thunder, SPD, and Jungle Fury on DVD. But I'll always still remember Jetix for what it is.